Good evening and welcome to Hello It's Us, a program based on the premise that life in general goes better if it's all of us pulling in the same direction as opposed to you, me, and them working at cross purposes. Hello It's Us is brought to you through a collaboration between the Center for Disabilities and Development, the Extend a Dream Foundation, and all the folks here at Public Access Television Channel 18. On my right, as always, is my co-host Keith Ruff. Tonight we're happy to have some of our friends from Disability Rights Iowa with us, from the Protection and Advocacy and Benefits Planning Division. We have Kelly Gibbs to my left, then Misty Johnson, John Gish, Emmanuel Stewart, also known as Mr. Chet Manley.
There you go.
Welcome to everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
It's been a while since we had Jane on to kind of do an overview of Disability Rights Iowa. And I'm sure lots of folks have heard of your name after the last several months, if not
Absolutely.
a whole lot of what you actually do. So if you guys want to explain some of who you are and what you do and some
Sure.
of that fun stuff.
I'd love to. We have been in the news lately, but Disability Rights Iowa is formerly known as Iowa Protection and Advocacy, as part of the national group of National Disability Rights Network. We're a nonprofit law center for individuals with disabilities. And we provide legally based advocacy for those individuals for no cost. Emmanuel, I don't know if you wanted to talk about your experiences.
Well, I can just briefly tell you how I was introduced to Disability Rights Iowa. About a year ago, I was selected to participate as the Americans with Disabilities Act intern through Disability Rights Iowa, and that really served as a great introduction to the kind of work that you guys do, and I'm privileged now to be a part of. And really, Disability Rights Iowa just serves as a great resource for people with disabilities to help protect our rights and our dignity, and really make sure that we're able to utilize to the fullest extent all the great resources that exist to help us thrive and live in this community.
And Emmanuel, you also were an intern, correct, with Disability Rights
Yeah, yep.
Iowa?
Prior to my
Yep.
position now as a PATS advocate.
Yep.
You mentioned the Americans with Disabilities Act, and that's probably another thing that for the last nearly 24 years people have heard mentioned, but may or may not know what it is, or more importantly, maybe asking, as many of us do, why nearly 24 years later are we still talking about the ADA?
Well, I'm lucky in that I was mainly lived a vast majority of my life under the protections of that law, which really, obviously it's very long and very complex. We don't need to get into every aspect of it. But the very basic idea is to even the playing field. A lot of the areas that people with disabilities face discrimination, whether it's in employment or getting out in our communities or being able to go and be patrons of business. And so, I really owe a debt of gratitude to you two, who for a long time had to serve as advocates in a pre-ADA world when a lot of those protections didn't exist. And it was great to be able to learn about that law and then use that information now in my work with Disability Rights Iowa. I know we all have done that.
Mm-hmm.
And Keith and I often talk about, I've kind of got three lives at this point. I lived the first 18 years of my life with no ADA, but not needing an ADA.
Mm-hmm.
I broke my neck in a car accident when I was a senior in high school, and that was when the awareness of folks with disabilities. The year between my junior and senior year, I was a supervisor on a playground for kids with intellectual disabilities, and kind of fell in love with the concept of working with them. but still didn't need it. The next 19 years, I could have used the ADA, but it still didn't exist. And then the 20 whatever years since, I've been able to take advantage of a lot of the things. But yeah, I mean, back in the day when, you couldn't get in not only couldn't you get in buildings, you couldn't get up on the sidewalk to get to the door that was inaccessible to get in the building to where there was probably stairways for the meeting you were trying to get to.
Right.
Or you couldn't get someplace to shop, or, there was no public transportation. Or, it very much was, the big bus and the little bus thing, and, here's the regular schools we have, and then we have the special school on the other side of town, and everything was very much separate.
Yeah.
And until, our own Senator Harkin kind of championed the changes, and things slowly have gotten to where we are now, even though, it certainly hasn't been smooth, and the folks that we battle against have come along dragging their feet all the way. But it certainly is different worlds than what they used to be.
Right. It's come a long way, but I think we still have a lot more work to do.
Yes. I don't know if you would call this advantage, but I was able to see both sides of the coin. I went to school before ADA came into existence, and it was a separate school. And on top of that, it was 2.5 hours away from home.
Cool. And to tell a parent now, and John, you could probably help with the reaction most parents would give as they went to register their child for school now, only to be told that that child was going to have a 2.5-hour bus ride to and from school? Yeah.
Well, I suppose I couldn't speak a whole lot to the educational aspect, but I couldn't imagine that kind of reaction a parent would have. I'd be pretty upset. That's, at the very least, I'd want some reimbursement for that kind of travel.
Well, yeah, and I guess I hadn't even thought about reimbursement, but yeah, just the fact that those are the things that people lived through
Yeah.
while trying to get some accessibility, and probably being told, no, 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 at every turn. Well, we can't afford that,
Right.
And the reality is that, a lot of people probably couldn't afford that. Something that Iowa has taken strides to do is put employment first. And that's really what we all kind of specialize in,
Right.
especially Misty and myself. We work with individuals who are receiving Social Security disability or supplemental security income, and we help them with their planning when they're considering going to work. So when you're talking about, before everything being separate, and now, post ADA or living with the ADA, we're talking about inclusion and giving people the opportunity, like anybody else with or without a disability, to earn a living.
When does the planning process for employment or job exploration or that stuff start for children with disabilities now?
In an ideal world,
Yeah.
the earlier the better.
Well,
Right.
I mean, the ideal world, and When does it start now?
When does it start now? It could
When
be-
does it say it starts and when does it actually
Right, I
start?
believe it's 14, you get to transition youth, and they start transition planning. My wife being a high school special ed teacher, I know that doesn't always happen. A lot of it being misinformation and a lack of information for parents. But realistically, late 20s, 30s, sometimes much later than that.
Well, and I think that it plays our part so much of a value for it is that we try to get out and do outreach in different high schools, different focus groups with parents and kids at that younger age, the 14, 16, coming up to the seniors, 18 to 22, so that they know what to expect. We want kids to be working at that younger age and know that that is the expectation,
Absolutely.
that is totally changed. Like you said before, to the schooling part of it was such a barrier that now that they've kind of worked to get that a little better, that now we change the expectation that all the kids are working at a younger age so that they can start building that up and be ready for the work world when they're out of high school.
Right. So yeah, the thought is, when I was growing up, my parents presumed I would get educated and become employed. Why should that not be the same for somebody with a disability?
Yeah.
Okay, and that comment and the expectations that Misty was talking about, I think are the two biggest barriers for folks with disabilities failing to succeed in society today.
Right.
Because the same expectations are not placed on individuals with disabilities as with non-disabled folks. And the expectations your folks placed on you. I mean, prior to my accident, I said it was April of my senior year in high school. Every expectation was, both my own and my family's, was, yeah, that I would in all likelihood go to college, I would find something to do, I would support myself, da-da-da-da-da. That expectation never changed in my mind
Right.
or my parents' mind,
Right.
because I couldn't think of a satisfactory alternative. But right now, the expectations are either so low or non-existent for kids with disabilities as they go through the system. As we talked earlier, becoming eligible for SSI is that shining star out there that too many people think, once you've achieved that, you've made it. You can sit back and enjoy the rest of your life.
Well-
Yet your 5 brothers and sisters, that's certainly not what they're doing. They're out busting their butts, working and raising families
Right.
and that. And why should that be different? But,
Right. I think too, like what Kelly said, Iowa's making big strides. I know nationwide they do, but Iowa, I think, is really at the forefront of doing the employment first and getting folks that correct knowledge about the benefits and, like you mentioned, getting that connotation of that SSI piece to where work is your first option. That SSI might be out there for you, but work should be the focus. And I think more and more, as we get in with the transition youth and just the self-advocacy, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
That we try to talk to folks about to get that 18-year-old that is sitting there wanting to work to get everybody on board with that same thing.
I'm thinking way before 18.
Oh yeah, way before.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
For sure.
So the grant Emmanuel and I work under is PABS, Protection and Advocacy for Beneficiaries of Social Security. And I think their grant that they work under for benefits planning and ours is a good marriage when we go out, do presentations. They're identifying one fear, and that's, oh man, I'm gonna go to work and I'm gonna lose my benefits. I'm afraid to lose my benefits. What happens then? And ours is more on the employment side of, all right, so maybe you need an accommodation. Here are some tips about how to ask for one. Maybe tips about interviewing, how to answer questions about medical information, and ideas about accommodations too. We get those kinds of questions. So those are two of the big things we try to help answer. And there's still that dependency on benefits. That's a hard one. It's hard that they have to find that answer themselves.
I would add to that too, it's really important to us and to PABS that the information that we give, that is accurate information. There's a lot of information out there, and we spend a lot of our efforts dispelling some of that,
Absolutely.
information that was passed down. John's an attorney. He's obviously had some credentials towards advocacy for, and you would obviously need to know how to speak towards your credentials and your background better than I can. Misty and I, we're certified through Social Security. Emmanuel, you obviously are a strong self-advocate and just advocate in general. So, we're not just your mom or your dad or just a stranger or your teacher. We've been trained on this information, and it's really important to us to make sure that we're giving accurate information so people can make good choices.
Empowering people to really
Yeah.
pursue the dreams that we all have.
It's so hard to undo that
It really is.
wrong information that people get in an early age.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
how do we get folks to the point, or hit folks, and I think it certainly is hitting folks from almost day one of knowing there's a disability to start on the path that, you are going to do something, to be pointing out, look at your brother, your sister, whoever, who are going to work, and not get that fear, I'm going off benefits, how will I support myself? Well, look around. Most of those people out there are supporting themselves without benefits,
Right.
Why should you have to be supported? You may not be able to support yourself completely, but you should be able to put as much effort as you can into doing it. And people don't see that as a bad thing. The whole idea of, if you're eligible for benefits, if you're doing everything you can and need assistance, fine. Apply for whatever you can. But the idea just breaks my heart that people are scared to attempt to go to work because they may lose benefits. And God knows, once you lose a benefit, getting them back is not, there's a few programs where you go off, things are fine, and if something doesn't work out and you need them back, there's the quick start thing again. But, when they hear some of the horror stories, whether they're accurate or not, because as all stories, folks with disabilities, horror stories about working with the system are probably 90% fiction and
You hear all the
10%
bad
fact.
and none of the good.
But
I think that's a part that John mentioned earlier, the way that we work so well together with our programs. I'm thinking of a presentation we did recently in Cedar Rapids, John and myself, and we had a young man there who was asking about accommodations. He wanted to work at a mechanic shop.
I think he was previously a mechanic.
Yeah.
Car accident, much
Prior
like
to his
yourself.
injury.
Injury, and he really wanted to get back to that kind of work. So we talked it out and possible accommodations he might have. And
Right, and just like you mentioned, that fear piece, to let them know that there was some safety nets out there and different ways to look at those benefits that they received from Social Security that are out there, that you could go and work and make that kind of a substantial amount of money to support yourself and have a decent life and be able to say, hey, I can't drive that car into the bay. And it's okay to ask that employer those kind of questions, and that's why I think we are
Yeah.
a good match as far as the teams go, because people just don't know that they can ask those questions or how to ask those questions.
And I'm just jumping out of my seat here because I'm because I'm just
Okay.
when you say those things, you know, we have that factual information to, I guess, kind of address those fears. So everything that you said there, I'm thinking, okay, well, Social Security, you know, we have work incentives for people, so you don't lose your benefits right away. I'm thinking, oh, there's another work incentive, you know, you're not going to lose your benefit instantly, and if you go off of it, you know, you could be reinstated to your benefit. I'm thinking past plans where, you know, they're set up for individuals, young and old. I'm talking, you know, 14 down to 60 who have a vocational goal, and not just that span, but who have a vocational goal and would like some support in that. There's things that our Social Security has set up that really are supportive of people going to work. And, you know, that fear-based mentality is what we're really trying to dispel. And it just gets me so passionate about it because we know the facts, you know, we know what the possibilities really are.
And it's, you know, I'm not myself too far removed from working part-time and not knowing how starting a career and doing all those things would affect my independence and my ability to care for myself. And obviously living on my own, having independence, you know, working independently, those things are really important to me. And they're something I really held dear. And I was very hesitant to do anything that I perceived as putting those things in jeopardy. What the disconnect there was, though, is through utilizing work incentives and learning about how working and collecting benefits interact and all those things and really empowering myself with knowledge, I'm now 10 times more secure than I was before. Right? So you have to put yourself out there a little bit intelligently, gradually, and really learn about all these great resources that exist. And, you know, Kelly and Missy are the people to go to for that.
And one of the issues with that is the fact that way too often you're hearing all the good reasons to do it from people without disabilities who are telling you how wonderful these programs are for folks with disabilities and da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
But there's not a panel of folks with disabilities who can continue going, yep, that's right, that's what I'm doing that one.
We may not have the credibility to say.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And
Well, and the
You
more
know,
of us who do it, the more
unfortunately-
voices out there will be to encourage
Yeah,
others to say
there's
it's
a lot.
okay, this can be done, and it can be done safely without putting your well-being at risk.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think of all of the stories, the success stories of people who have, you know, stepped outside of that fear and tried something different and put their trust, you know, in the system.
Sure.
That they would support them in their journey, and those, I mean, they're just so inspirational
Yeah.
to me, you know, just because it's exactly what you said. It's a scary process, and you know there is a lot of trust that needs to happen, and that's why being accurate is really important to us.
It would be much better if people with disabilities were asked for more input in what's going to happen.
Right.
Absolutely.
the whole nothing without or about us without us idea.
Right. Well, and I think it's so great that we can get out in front of parents too, so that they are ready to support their kids in that. So that it's not just that benefit that's coming into the household as a household income either, that they want that for their kids at a young age to do that moving forward. So that the whole complex system that it is, that we can help them through that from the
Yeah,
beginning, like you said.
and the having the parents there, as you say too,
Right.
as well as
And the panel of folks
the
that have
other
been
folks,
there, done that.
because that's parents' biggest fear
Sure.
is, my God, what's going to happen to my loved one? You know, and these horrible stories, oh, they're going to send them out to be janitors and give them all these chemicals, and da-da-da-da-da.
Right.
They're going to be in a one-bedroom or studio apartment with no utilities, da-da-da. And to have parents whose children have gone through that at no matter what an age, be able to stand up and say, you know, my kid is happier than they've ever been.
Exactly.
You know, we're feeling better than we ever have because we know they're okay. We know they're going to be okay. We're able to take it a little easier. We don't worry about everything every minute. Well, we've burned through our first half hour of time. So we will end this segment and be back for another one.
Yeah.
It's great having you all here, and we still have lots to talk about in the next segment.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. See you all next week.
Bye now.